There are over 600 different Linux distributions, 600 different types and flavors of Linux. And if you're thinking about switching to Linux, which many people are, then you're probably wondering which one is right for you. Well, today I'm going to break down everything you need to know about picking a Linux distribution, and I'm going to give you a short list of ones that I recommend based on your use case. So with all of that being said, let's dig right in. So there are two major things that basically differentiate different Linux distributions, and that is the desktop environment they use and the package manager they use. Let's start with the package manager. A package manager is a program that handles installing, upgrading, and uninstalling other programs. It's very straightforward in its use, and although there are several different package managers out there for Linux, they all operate in pretty much the same way. You run a command to install software, upgrade it, or uninstall it. See, this is very different from Windows. You see, in the Windows world, you have to go Google for the software that you want, and then hope you're clicking on a legitimate link when you download it. This is pretty risky for obvious reasons. First of all, it's very common for malicious programs to purchase Google ads so that they appear at the top of the results list. I think we've all had at least one family member who unknowingly clicked on an ad that was like a fake Google Chrome. It happens. But a package manager is different because it uses what's called a repository. A repository is basically a download list of software that's made available for your Linux distribution that is maintained by a developer or a maintainer. This means that if you stick to the default repos, pretty much every piece of software you can download is guaranteed to be free of virus and spyware. At least for the most part, but that's maybe a story for a different video. My point is that package managers and the repos they pull from are a much safer way of downloading software than what you do on something like Windows. It's basically an app store, but actually useful. Another benefit of the package manager system is that you can upgrade your entire computer and all of its software all at once. That's right, instead of having 100 little background processes for each program constantly eating up resources, checking for updates, you check for updates all in a centralized place. So when you go to upgrade your software, you're upgrading your operating system, and you're upgrading the software that you actually use all at once. It makes it so much easier to manage updates. And another big difference between different Linux distributions is the desktop environment they use. See, there's about a dozen popular desktop environments, and they're basically the graphical interface that you interact with. There are some really great ones, and I'm going to give you a short list of ones I recommend. But before that, I need to point out that the desktop environment is almost a more important choice than the distro you choose, because the desktop environment is the thing that you're going to be interacting with. It's the file manager, the windowing system, the buttons to close and minimize programs, the dock, the title bar, the taskbar, all of that graphical stuff that you interact with that's not a separate program. That's your desktop environment. So which ones do I recommend? So this kind of differs depending on your taste, but my personal favorite is GNOME. GNOME is a very polished, very opinionated desktop environment. It has a very opinionated user experience. What I mean is that, for example, there is no minimize button. In GNOME, if you want to minimize a program, what you're supposed to do instead is either just close it because programs open so fast, or you're meant to move it to another virtual desktop, which they call workspaces. GNOME centers heavily on an overview that shows you your dock, your title bar, and your virtual desktops. And this overview is very slick, and it's very well animated, and it has proportional animations to when you're using a touchpad. So yeah, GNOME's pretty cool. It's also very extensible. You see, there's this website, extensions.gnome.org, and it allows you to download hundreds of little tweaks that will customize your GNOME desktop. You can do stuff like having the dock always be there. You can move the dock to the other side of the screen. You can give your overview a nice blur with your wallpaper colors. There's a lot of customization you can do with GNOME, but the core user experience, the primary way it operates, is going to be pretty much the same regardless of what extensions you install, with a few notable exceptions, but that's a story for another time. Now, the second desktop environment I recommend is KDE. KDE out of the box operates a lot like Windows, but don't be fooled, it's got some tricks up its sleeve. So KDE can be completely customized in pretty much every way you can possibly think of. You can get a cool, neon cyberpunk theme. You want to have a menu bar at the top? No problem. You want to have a macOS style dock? Not a problem. You want a Windows style taskbar, or maybe you want a different start menu. There are dozens to choose from. And basically, if you want to make your computer look like anything you could possibly imagine, KDE is a great option for you. It has a very cohesive style to it, not as cohesive as what GNOME has. GNOME is probably the most aesthetically pleasing desktop, but KDE, from a functional standpoint, is one of the best. It's way better experience than Windows, that's for sure. And the third one that I want to mention is Cosmic. Now, Cosmic is a very new desktop environment. It's developed by System76, who builds their own computers that they sell online. They're based out of Colorado, I think. But Cosmic is written in Rust, meaning that it's very memory safe. Now, that doesn't matter too much in the context of what we're talking about today, but I know some people really like Rust software, so there's an option for you. Cosmic looks a lot like GNOME out of the box, and out of the box it functions a lot like GNOME too, except there are fewer animations, things are snappier, and it's a little bit, if I'm being honest, it's a little bit of a rougher experience. But it has a couple things up its sleeve, because although it looks and operates like GNOME by default, it also has the customization depth of KDE. You can make your Cosmic environments look like anything you want it to look like. It can have a dock, it can have a taskbar, it can have a menu bar, it can have a panel on the side. You can really customize it quite a bit, not as much as KDE. KDE is still more customizable than Cosmic. However, it's a good middle ground between GNOME and KDE. And that ace up its sleeve that I mentioned, that's the tiling window manager support. So when you're using Cosmic, you can pick either having floating windows that can overlap with each other, or you can have tiling windows, which basically makes the most use out of your screen. Because with a tiling window manager, when you open a new program, it automatically resizes it and all the other windows so that you're using all of the screen all the time. This is a great user experience, if a bit advanced, but once you get used to it, it's very hard to switch back to a floating window manager. Now, the fourth one that I want to mention is Sway. So Sway is a bit of a more technical desktop. In fact, it's not really a desktop environment. It's a window manager, meaning it doesn't come with stuff like a file browser or a web browser or any kind of software you would expect with your computer. It's simply a system that puts windows on your screen, and like Pop! OS Cosmic, it is a tiling window manager, meaning, again, every time you open a window, it's going to resize everything, and there's no overlapping. All of the windows are tiled, so they don't overlap, which again makes very good use of your screen real estate. The disadvantage with Sway is that it's quite complicated. You're going to be installing all of your own programs that you possibly want to actually make it a full desktop experience, and on top of that, it's very customizable. However, you're going to be doing a lot of that customizing by editing configuration files. So that's a brief overview of the 4 desktop environments that I would recommend considering as a new user. But let's talk about which distributions you should choose depending on your use case. Okay, so right off the bat, I know everybody knows about Arch. Everybody wants to run Arch. But look, if you're a new Linux user, Arch is not a good idea. I'm not saying that you can't use it, I'm just saying it's going to break when it runs updates at some point, and you're going to be expected to fix it. If you're new to Linux, this isn't really a good experience. And I get there's the street cred of running Arch. Is there? But I get it, it's a popular thing to boast about. But if you're just getting started in Linux, I mean, you can try Arch, no one's going to stop you. I'm just saying you're probably not going to have a very good experience. So let's talk about the use cases that we're going to cover here today. First is gamers, second is developers, and third is general everyday users. So let's start with the gamers. I'm going to give you 2 distributions that I'd recommend for gaming. Now, if you want to primarily use your computer as a gaming machine, I'm going to recommend SteamOS. You might already be using SteamOS. If you own a Steam Deck, then that's the default operating system and it's based on Arch Linux. Now, unlike Arch Linux, it is very easy to maintain and it's very easy to install. However, you do need to keep in mind that it is an immutable distribution. And what is immutable? What's the difference between an immutable and a bog standard operating system? Well, an immutable basically cannot be rendered broken by software, meaning that if an update goes sideways, it's still going to work. If there's some kind of software issue, it's always going to work. Basically, it cannot be rendered unusable because of software. Now, I think this is a great deal for a new Linux user, because I think that, speaking from experience, the first few times you install Linux, you basically destroy it on accident. An immutable distribution solves this. You are not going to be able to break it intentionally or unintentionally. So this does come with some caveats. So the biggest one is that the root file system is read-only. What does that mean? Well, your system files, everything except your home directory where you keep your files. All of the operating system stuff is read-only, meaning that while it's running, it cannot be modified. This has some benefits and some drawbacks. The first benefit is that it's more secure, right? Because malware that tries to infect your Linux system, and yes, there is Linux malware out there. Any of that stuff that tries to infect it, well, it's probably not going to be able to be successful because it can't write to your system files. Another benefit is that you can't break your system files because they're literally locked up and you can't touch them. Now, the drawbacks to this, you're probably wondering, well, if I can't write to the to the root file system, how do I install software? And that comes in the form of Flatpaks. So Flatpaks are another type of package manager that you can use on Linux, and it's different than some of the other ones. So by default, a regular package manager will install dependencies and libraries and everything a piece of software needs to operate into the root file system. This is just the way software normally works on pretty much every platform. Now, Flatpaks are sandboxed, meaning a package comes with everything that it needs to run all in one package, and it's deployed as a unit. Now, this does take up some more space, but it gives you the ability to control the permissions on the program granularly. You can say, I want this program to not have network access, and I want this program to not be able to read my files. It's a very good piece of software. And of course, the downside is that not every program is going to A, work, or B, be available in Flatpaks, so you are limiting yourself as far as your software choice goes. But this ties into the immutable distribution system, because that's how you get software, because they're all sandboxed and self-contained and separate from the operating system. So if you're planning to primarily play games on your system, then SteamOS is a great choice. Now, if you want to play games, but you also want to do some general computing, well, that's where Nobara comes in. Nobara is based on Fedora, and it is also an immutable desktop, meaning, again, you cannot break it by fiddling around with it, and this comes with the same drawbacks. The reason I give you the option between SteamOS and Nobara is because Nobara is better for general computing usage than SteamOS is. So basically, if you want to game and pretty much only game on your computer, then SteamOS. If you want to instead, use your computer for gaming and some work and other stuff, well, then you'd go with Nobara. Okay, and let's talk about developers. If you're a developer, you probably know your way around the command line interface, so you can start with something a little bit more advanced, which is why I'm going to recommend Fedora Serica. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Serica. I'm just going to call it Serica. But Fedora Serica comes with the Sway desktop environment. It's that tiling window manager that I talked about earlier. And again, pretty much all the customization you do in Sway is done through configuration files. However, if you're a developer, you probably are already pretty familiar with this concept. Now, the thing that makes Serica special is that it's immutable. Again, you'll notice a pattern here. I really think immutable distributions are a great choice for a new user. And Fedora Serica gives you that Sway experience, and it's immutable, but you might be wondering, okay, if I'm a developer, how do I work with an immutable system? I kind of need to be able to tinker with it and manage packages natively. Well, Fedora Serica comes with a thing called Toolbox, and this is the correct way to do your development. So instead of building your software directly on your machine and polluting it and mixing up libraries, running into that classic problem of, it works on my machine, but it doesn't work on yours, to solve all of that, you would use a toolbox, which is basically a sandboxed container, and it's basically a copy of Fedora inside of Fedora. It allows you to install any kind of software like you would normally on Fedora. It gives you an environment where you can manage individual projects, each in their own container. And it also makes it easier to ship your software because that container is purpose-built for your software, so all your dependencies are going to be pretty obvious. Now, it does require you to think differently about the way you use your computer, but once you get used to it, it's quite logical. Now, if you're a developer, your other options I'm going to give you are Fedora Kino White or Fedora Silverblue. These, again, are both immutable distributions, and that comes with all the benefits and all the catches of all the other ones I've listed so far. The difference between them and Serica is that Serica comes with the Sway window manager, Fedora Kino White comes with KDE, and Fedora Silverblue comes with GNOME. So you get to take your pick of which desktop environment you prefer, while reaping all the benefits of Fedora and the atomic structure. And then probably the least interesting is just regular office work. People who need to do emails, make a spreadsheet, type up Word documents. For those use cases, I'm going to recommend either Fedora Silverblue or Fedora Kino White. And again, the difference between them is that Silverblue comes with GNOME and Kino White comes with KDE. And again, like I said earlier, these are all immutable distributions, meaning that you literally cannot break it. It is guaranteed to always work, unless there's a hardware failure, but obviously you can't control that. So those are my picks for you. And I hope this video helped you decide which Linux distribution you're thinking of running. I certainly enjoyed making this video for you. I hope you enjoyed watching it. And thank you to all 5,800 of you who are subscribed. That really means a lot to me, and I'm very grateful for every set of eyes watching this video. It's really kind of empowering to think that I have a voice that people can hear, even in the small scope of what this channel is. So really, thank you for giving me the opportunity to ramble. So that's all for me today. I'll catch you in the next one.